Hello, welcome back. In this video, we're going to take a quick look at the deep dive features of your program edit. And as much as possible, we will try to showcase using examples, by working on some of the drum kits that we've already loaded on the current project we're working on. Now, we're going to start from here and then we'll run our way through here to showcase some of these things. In actual sense, some of them we will take up separately and treat them, deep dive. But for now, let us look at what is obtainable on the global. If you are yet to update your own device to the latest software, I think what you might have here might be masters, but now it's been updated, it's been now global. Now let's take a look at it from here to this place. So as you can see, this being global, it basically means any modification you do here might end up affecting the entire kit you're working on, the entire program you're working on. So it is advisable that you take note of what you are going to modify here as far as this is global, right? Now, I want to talk about, I'm sure you are right now aware and you can basically find a way around how to tune your work on the semi-tune and the fine tuning, where you can set it individually per pad. It's somewhere else, but this might affect everything globally. So you want to be careful when you're dealing with, changing the tones and then probably the fine tuning here. Now, the same thing is applicable to poly. What this is trying to say is how many of the entire part, how many of them can I play together at the same time? How many can I play together at the same time? You will agree with me that there are some instruments that you cannot hear two of them overlapping, except only if you're playing two at the same time. There are some instruments that you can have two of them overlapping, that immediately you hit the next note, the previous note is disconnected or disengaged. A good example might be those flutes. It has to be one at a time. So maybe in those instances, you might just change this to maybe mono, which simply means it's only one that can play per time. That means as soon as any other one is engaged, the other one or the current one that is playing becomes disconnected. Now, let's try with this. This is in poly. You see that this is long? You can still hear, even while I hit the snare here, you can still hear the kick. But if I take it to mono, this snare automatically shuts off this because you cannot hear more than just one per time. That's what that means. So if you want maybe just two or three paraphonic or something like that, you can choose to say, okay, you can specify how many of these parts can be active together at once. That's what this does. But most of the time we leave it at poly because we want to be able to, work on it. All the 16 can be playing at the same time. You can put all the 16 on different track or even the same track and they play at the same time. That is basically what this does. And that is why I say these are global settings that applies to all the samples in that bank that you're currently working on. Now, look at here as well. You have here right now, these are not global. This is specific to the parts that we have here. Now, this particular one, this kick, let me show you something here on the sample. You can see that right here, it's got two layers. If you recall in our beginners course, we talked about layering, right? This actually has two layers, layer 1 and layer 2. That means when I hit this particular part, it's playing two different samples for me, putting them one on top of the other. Now, the good thing is, if you come back to your global, this is what controls how they are being played. Level basically applies to, well, you understand, the gain, right? And panning maybe to the left or to the right. Then the mute group, I am not putting it in on any mute group. It's not stopping anything from playing. So the mute group is off. We're still coming back to that. Now, take a quick look at your layer play. Layer play is simply asking you, because you have items layered on layer 1, 2, some you might even have 4. You have up to 4 spaces to put your layers. If you have 4, then layer play is asking you, how do you want me to play them? Should I convert your strike to velocity? Velocity means as long as you hit it, play everything. Or should I convert it into a cycle? Cycle means it will play layer 1. The next time you hit it, it will play layer 2. Next time you hit, it plays layer 3. And the next time you hit, it plays layer 4. That is how that cycle works. Now, a good example, like I told you, I have just layer 1 and layer 2. Listen to what layer 1 is, sounds like. That is 1. That's another one. That's 1. That's another one. And it will continue like that. So there are times maybe you might say, you know what? I want to hit it 3 times. Then the 4th time, I need to hear something different. This might just work. Instead of you to create 2 different parts, you might just put the layers on 3 parts and then put the 4th one on the last part, like here. And then you know that if you put it on cycle, it cycles through with them. Now, the random, just like the name implies, if you specify that you want your part to be triggered randomly, it will go through the layers randomly. You see, you can't determine or decide what comes in. This might be good if you want to have maybe like different feel of, let's say, shakers. Those percussion instruments, those the shakers, the tambourines. You can put them on different layers, and then you can actually use maybe like your random to play around and see the pattern it will generate for you. That's basically what this works. So when you tap, 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 it gives you different kinds of vibe per time. But mostly, default setting is velocity, just so that it plays everything at once. It's actually playing 2 of the parts at the same time right now. Now, let's come to sample play. Sample play, I'm telling it, oh, should you just play one shot that once I hit it once, it plays everything once and that's all. Then note off simply means when I play everything from start to finish. Once I press it, play it from start to finish. But note on simply means as long as my hand is on this trigger, that is the pad itself, that is how long I'm supposed to play it. The moment I take my hands off, stop it. So while that might not be very much useful for, let's say, kick or your snare, because those are mostly considered to be one-shot samples, it might be useful when you're using instruments, when you're bringing in some synths and all that, and then when you take your hands off it, it stops. When you press and hold, it continues. Or if it's an 808, something like that might work better. Now, that is basically how that works. So we leave it at default, which is 1 shot. And also, we're talking about the mute group earlier. We said the mute group, if I want this to be silenced by this, I want part 1 to be silenced by part 2. Most of the time, it's already applicable when you're doing this, the hi-hats, right? We have the open hat and the closed hat. And just as you would know, you cannot afford to let the open hat and the closed hat play at the same time. When you're playing the drum set, the open hat opens, and then when it closes, you will no longer hear the open hat. So open hat, you can let the open hat mute the closed hat, and the closed hat to mute the open hat. That is how you achieve a natural, sound. So I might consider this as my open hat. I might consider this as my closed hat, because the open hat usually sometimes the tail is longer than the closed hat. So I need this to cancel out each other. So I come back to this global. You can hear that right now. If I press the 2, they basically play together. What I'm looking for is an instance whereby I can click on this. You see part A7. Then I hit the mute group and I set it to maybe 1. Then I hit part 8, mute group, I set it also to 1. That way, anytime I press 1, it will mute the other. Anytime I press the other, it will mute the first one. So I will not be able to hear a closed hat while an open hat is engaged. I will not hear an open hat when a closed hat is engaged. I'm trying to figure out or be sure that you're actually hearing what I'm hearing right now. But if you don't, please kindly take your time to try it out on your own device as well and hear it. Especially practice it using something that has a longer tail. You'll be able to hear the instant cutoff, just like this. If I enable this on pad 1 now, let me put it on mute group 1. And I put this also on mute group 1. Did you hear that? So, do you understand? So that's basically what the mute group does. Let me leave it back to off for this one because we're not using it for the current project we're working on. Now, did you hear what just happened? Even the same pad, I can hit it several times and it will continue to play. It can give me like, it can play it because it is on one shot, right? That particular pad, if I hit it 3-4 times, it will continue to play 3-4 times. That is what this does. This poly again, it is different from this poly. This poly or mono talks about how many of these pads can play at the same time. But this particular one talks about how many instances of this particular pad can be active at any point in time. Let me show you something. Let me take it back. It's on mono, right? Let me put it 2. Did you hear what just happened? Let me put it on 3. What you're hearing actually is the fact that because I enabled 3, if I press it 3 times, it will still play out the first one, the second one, and the third one. It will play everything from start to finish. Let me try and do for something else that will do good justice to this. Yes, this. You can see it's on mono. So each time I strike it, it cuts off the previous one or the current one that is playing and it restarts again from beginning and then it plays to the end. But if I make it 2 and I tap it twice, 2 of the instances will play from beginning to the end. It will not cut off the first one that I started. You were only 2. If I increase it to 3 of the same instance will play from beginning to the end. So that might just help you to also know how best to use it. If you really want any of the instances of your part to play from beginning to the end, or you want any one of them to basically, just play out when maybe just once. But most of the time you only see it on mono, and that is because you only want one of the instances of any of the parts to play at any given time. But your work might require that you let 2 or 3 or 4 of them play. When you strike, you don't want what is currently playing to stop. You want to trigger it again. And that is what this might be useful for. Maybe you load up a sample that says, oh yeah, and then you want to tap it twice and let the 2 samples still go, oh yeah, fine, this works. Because if it's on mono, you're only going to hear it once. It will cancel the one that is currently active and just take it again. Then you hear, oh yeah, as opposed to hearing, oh yeah, something like that. Do you understand? Now that's basically what this does. Now let's come to simultaneous play. I want to be able to trigger a pad and at the same time it's playing another pad. If I strike this, I want it to play something else for me. When I press this, I need this part 4. This hat, I need it to be engaged as well. So, like I said earlier, the first option might be for you to layer everything so that they sound together when you strike. But the other option might still be for you to just say, you know what? While I am here, simultaneously play pad 4. Did you hear that now? That's basically what's happening. And you see that you can also specify 4 of this simultaneous play. So which means one pad can trigger 4 other pads on your device. The same thing with mute target. So which means I want to say anytime I hit this particular track, this particular pad, mute any other target pad if they are already playing. Just mute it. So, and the good thing about this is it doesn't really matter if that pad has any sample on it or not. It does not apply. It doesn't matter. The pad might end up not even having any sample. Let me go to pad bank B. There is nothing here, right? And I can come here and say, when I strike this, play pad 1, play pad 2. Whereas there's no sample actually originally on it. And the same thing is applicable to the mute target. I could say when I strike it, mute a particular target, mute 3 or 4 targets. It is kind of like, it is your creativity that will now determine, that will let you know, okay, fine, when best to use this based on the kind of music you're playing or the kind of music you're trying to make currently. So that is all about the global interface of your program edit. We'll see you in the next video.